We're just going to give folks a minute or so to trickle in here from the waiting room. So sit back. We'll start in probably about a minute or two. Right, just like another minute or so. For those of you who have just recently joined, we're going to be getting started here in just a second. I just want to give time for everyone to come in from the waiting room. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. First of all, welcome everybody to this event. We are so excited to be able to renew our partnership with the Riverside County Bar Association to bring pre-law programming to UCR for students who are interested in legal careers, maybe wanted to go to law school their entire life, maybe are just thinking that it might be the right path for them and want to get more information. My name is Justine Ross. I'm the Associate Director of the Presley Center of Crime and Justice Studies. For those of you who have been on campus for more than just a year or so, you might remember that we did this sort of event series back in 2021. And we're, again, thrilled to be able to put it on again with the RCBA. And so this year, we're going to be hosting 2 webinars, this one being the first, with Riverside County Bar Association members. And they're going to share today about their experience in law school, insight, tips for applying, how to make the most out of the experience and really set you up for success. We'll have another webinar back in, it'll be in late winter, probably late winter, early spring, that will focus on sort of a day in the life of, somebody who's practicing law, what that actually looks like and what that means in terms of your life outside of work. And then we also will be hosting sort of one-on-one coffee chats where students will have the opportunity to sign up to meet with a member of the Riverside County Bar Association and just talk one-on-one about your interests, maybe questions that are really specific to you that you wouldn't be comfortable asking to, in front of a broad audience. So we have a lot going on this year. The fact that you're on this call, that you registered, means that you will be notified of all of these opportunities as they come up. So do keep a lookout. But in the meantime, we're very excited today to focus on applying to law school, going to law school, and we're joined by 5 fantastic members of the RCBA, all of whom are practicing attorneys in Riverside County, and all of whom are just really looking forward to sharing their experience with you and to fielding your questions at the end. So we do ask that you submit your questions using the Q&A button that's at the bottom of your screen, not the chat feature, but the Q&A button, and submit them as you think of them. We're going to be holding all questions for the end, but if you get it in earlier in the queue, more likely that we'll be able to have time to answer it and that you'll be sort of prioritized in that way. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our first speaker, Summer DeVore with Stream Kim.
Hi, welcome everybody. My name is Summer DeVore. I'm in my 5th year of practice at Stream Kim. We're a law firm in downtown Riverside. My practice area is civil business litigation, which pretty much boils down to contract disputes and real property disputes. My journey to law school was very different than I would say the average student. Most people, get their bachelor's degree, decide what they want to do and go from law school after that. I, on the other hand, wasn't quite sure I was ready to commit to law school, so I took 2 years off, got my bachelor's degree in psychology with a minor in government, thinking about law school, took a couple years off, ended up going back to school and getting a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. And then once I finished that, I decided I needed to go to law school. It was now or never. And I was going to go the first semester and kind of see see how it played out. A lot of the times I get asked whether or not I wish I had gone straight to law school, straight from undergrad. And I think it could go back and forth. It would have been nice. I would have been a little bit more further in my career by now. But at the same time, I think I learned a lot of life lessons that have come in handy, kind of doing law school as a second career and a little bit later in life. So I think each path is up to each individual, and it's kind of whatever works best for you. When I was looking at law schools, one of the big things that stuck out to me is I was working full time. I needed to stay working full time. So I wanted to find a program that had a night program that was reasonable, that would allow me to still work during the day and take classes at night. So in doing so, I looked at Western State College of Law is out in Orange County, as well as Southwestern is out in LA. I encourage you, if you're going to apply to different law schools, go and visit these schools. Go and meet the professors, go and talk to some of the students. I think that was one of the bigger reasons I ended up going to Western State, is because I went out there, I talked to everybody, and it just felt like a place that I wanted to be at for the next 4 years. Part-time program is 4 years. It was all at night. It was also all year round. So I got probably 2 weeks off in May, and then summer session started, and then 2 weeks off in August, and then fall started. So it was a lot of work. I think you hear people say that law school's a lot of work and you don't really know what you're getting into until you start doing it. The good thing about law school, though, is if you kind of give what you get what you give, I should say. Someone told me this starting it, and I think it is very true. If you're someone that wants to succeed and wants to be a part of, there's special organizations like Law Review, you put that energy and effort out there, you're going to see it return back to you, whether it's grades or scholarships or something like that. I will say going to Western State at night was different in the sense that I wasn't on campus during the day, but I was able to work full time. One of the reasons I picked Western State was scholarships. Law school can be quite expensive. So that was a school that offered, based upon a GPA, you got so much money each year. So that was a motivating factor to also go there, as well as keep up a GPA, because that was something that was valuable to me. Western State also had a great alumni network. So that was also something that was important to me in choosing a law school. If you're not necessarily going to go to a top tiered law school, which Western State is not one, but it does have a great alumni network. So when I graduated, I'm able to meet a lot of people and other attorneys that went to Western State who are able to open doors, refer cases to me. I can refer them to them. So that was something important in choosing a law school. What else? I think one of the things that surprised me about law school is just the network you build. So starting from day one, you're in a cohort usually of a certain group of people. And from there, you move on throughout the 4 years. And these people, 5 years later, I'm still in practice, and they're people I refer cases to. They're people I call when I have questions. A couple, even in our personal lives have crossed over where we're friends, we're in organizations together. It's amazing how these friendships that you start out in law school, people you've never met, known, and they just blossom with you more so than any of my friends in my master's program or in undergrad. And I think it's because of the amount of, work that goes into law school. Doing the nighttime program, I will say that, and working full time, it's just a big commitment, and it's all about time management. And I think that is key to anything. And it's kind of prioritizing what you want to do and when. And if you can do that, that will set you up for success. Coming up with whatever works for you, your own study strategy, your own timing, whether you need breaks so often or need a day to go just relax. It's figuring out what works best for you, and what works best for you might not be what's best for your friend. And that's fine. I think everyone has their own individual ways of tackling problems. And if you can recognize that in yourself, that is huge. And that will help you in law school going forward. I would encourage you, if you're interested in law school, I think a good thing would be to try and shadow an attorney. If you know of anyone, or I know there's internships or work at a law firm. I was fortunate enough to, prior to going to law school, While I was an undergrad, I got a job as an office clerk in a law firm. It happens to be the same law firm I'm currently still out now as an attorney. So I started there kind of from the bottom up and learned, just the day-to-day tasks, like going to court, doing court filings, little things, deliveries, and then slowly started learning more about the field. And that's eventually what got me into the area where I knew that law school is something that I wanted to do. Because at that point, I had moved up to a legal secretary, legal assistant, doing paralegal work. And it was an area that I decided that, I saw I saw the late hours, like depending on what area of practice you go into. I saw the hard work, I saw the analytical aspects, and I knew that that was something that I definitely wanted to be a part of. So if you can kind of get a feel for that experience, if that's something you want to do, I would recommend doing that. Um, I think that kind of summarizes at least my experience and my path to law school. And I hope that gave you guys some insight moving forward. And I'm happy to stick around and answer any questions you guys might have at the end, or if you want to reach out to me individually, I'm happy to meet with anybody one-on-one as well.
Thank you so much, Summer. And we do have questions coming in the Q&A section, so we'll be sure to direct those to you later on at the end of the discussion. So I thank you very much. Before we get to our next speaker, just for those of you, a few of you guys have just joined, and so welcome, first of all. Second of all, we're asking that you submit questions using the Q&A feature on Zoom at the bottom of your screen. So go ahead, submit questions as they come to you. We'll have somebody moderate the discussion at the end of this panel, and your questions will be asked. But do submit them as they come to you, so you don't forget kind of what important question or point you wanted to make later on. So with that, we're going to turn it over to our next speaker, Nolan Kistler with the Law Offices of Harlan B. Kistler.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Nolan Kistler. I'm a new attorney. I've been practicing for just a little over a year now. I work at the Law Offices of Harlan B. Kistler. It's a small personal injury firm here in Riverside. A little bit about my background. I am a native to Riverside. I went to Martin Luther King High School, and I attended California Baptist University. After college, I spent 1 year working as a law clerk at the firm similar to Summer that I currently am working at. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. Summer touched on it as well, but some of you here that are thinking of law school may have considered whether you want to work at a firm or just get some general work experience prior to law school. And I'll say, for those of you that may be considering those options, there's a wide variety of students that do one or the other, some of which have worked 5 to 10 years at a prestigious law firm, other students who just came fresh out of undergrad and went straight into law school. My opinion, I'd say it really doesn't matter that much. Is there some advantage to understanding how the law actually works in the legal field prior to learning about it at law school? I think absolutely. Especially if you're like me and in order for you to fully understand something, you have to kind of understand the why or how mechanically things work. I would recommend working for a firm prior, or at least shadowing another attorney, as Summer mentioned, or getting involved in some sort of an internship. That said, though, I have plenty of friends who jumped right into law school post-undergrad, and they did phenomenal. So I don't think it's a must, but I would just consider it. Think about what kind of a learner you are. One of my friends who comes to mind, he just gets things. It's kind of annoying, but he would just read something once and somehow fully understand that concept. And on that, I'll share a quick story about him. There was one time that we took the whole class, or our whole class took the property law midterm, and we just had received our grades back from the midterm. And of course, this was the grade, it was my worst grade in law school. I hate property law. And my friend was sitting next to me, the guy that kind of just gets everything. And he like blurted out, well, that was relatively easy. And everyone who could hear him in the class, like, which was quite a few people, because he blurted it out, like just stared at him and they're fuming. And I think our entire track agreed that midterm was the hardest exam we had faced at that point in law school. So if you want to talk about an unpopular opinion, that was my friend. But needless to say, I wasn't like that. I take pride in the fact that I have to reread sentences all the time, sometimes 2 times, 3 times. I have to reread sentences in order to understand it. And that's okay. Everybody learns differently, everybody works differently. So do you need career experience? Depends on the person. If you've never considered it before, I'd recommend that you at least think about it. And other than delaying when you start law school, some work experience can never really hurt you. Now let's talk about the LSAT. We'll get back to my background. I fast forward 1 year. At that point, I had taken the LSAT and had received just about 1 year of experience working as a law clerk. And on the topic of the LSAT, many questions stem from that test. So I'm just going to stick to my personal experience. And if you have any other questions, we can talk about those later. But I took a prep course. It's called Kaplan, which you've all probably heard of because they do SAT prep and several other prep courses. Most prep courses are expensive. I think I paid $1,000 for my preparation. The LSAC, which is the website that you must sign up for to register for law school applications and everything else, offers a free course, to my understanding. I'm not sure of the quality of the course, and I haven't seen any statistics, but I definitely look into that as an option if finance is a big concern for you. Do you need a prep course to succeed on the LSAT? Again, it depends on the person, but in my experience, myself, the answer is yes. I'm not a good independent learner, and I needed other people to guide me through that process. And to be frank, the score does matter. It can dictate what school you go to, whether you qualify for financial aid and scholarships. So I consider the prep course, to me, like an investment. Fast forward, I take the LSAT. I just took it one time. I was somewhat satisfied with my score. It wasn't my ultimate goal, but it was enough to get into the law school that I ended up going to. I applied to 20 different schools. Is that excessive? Yeah, probably. But I also wanted to explore a lot of different options. And because I explored all those options, I felt confident in my ultimate choice because I got to think about what life could be like if I went to UC Davis or a school on the opposite side of the country in Virginia, for example. So ultimately, I chose a school close to home, and I chose Chapman Dale E. Fowler School of Law. It's a school in Orange County, California. And on the topic, while we're still on the topic of the LSAT, before I move on to applications, one of your fellow students, Rayon, brought up the question regarding the weight of the LSAT test as it compares to your GPA, and how do schools weigh those two factors? Which test do they weigh heavier? I'd say that the majority of schools probably weigh the LSAT heavier than GPA. I found that this is especially the case on the West Coast. But I did apply to some schools on the East Coast, and I encountered some schools that weighed GPA heavier, actually. So it's a mixed bag, but overall, I would say the LSAT score is weighted heavier across the board. Now, which law school? We're talking about the application process. How do you choose once you've sent those applications in? How do you choose what school you'd like to go to? And as I mentioned, I applied to 20 different schools. What I figured out from applying that was that I didn't want to work in a big law firm. I love the practice of law and dedicate so much time and attention to win for my clients. But to me, it's never as important as family time. And I wanted a work-life balance that I currently have. So I wanted to stay local and go to a law school that was close to the firm that I'm currently at. Additionally, I wanted to make connections and maintain connections in the Riverside community, knowing that someday I'd practice here. So it didn't make much sense for me to go far away for school. And these are all little things that I encourage you to consider, because each of you have different priorities. And it does sound cliche, but I'd also encourage you to make a little pros and cons list after you get to the point where you're choosing schools. List all the pros and the cons of each school. And I do think it'll benefit you, and you'll think of considerations that you might not have thought of otherwise. Transitioning to my law school experience, probably an unpopular opinion, but I loved it. There's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of law school memes, and there's just a general stigma kind of that it just sucks and it's not fun. And to some extent, it is hard. is very stressful and it requires a lot from you. But at the end of the day, anything worth achieving will be hard. It will require sacrifice. And I, in particular, was blessed by the people I met in law school. I met a fantastic group of friends. I still hang out with them to this day. We just did a Friendsgiving this last week. We still bounce ideas off each other when we're discussing certain legal principles, and we're all practicing attorneys now. So really that aspect of meeting good people, meeting good friends really made the law school experience enriching for me. But with all of that said, the advice I would give you about law school when you're in law school is that it is what you make of it. Be open to make new friendships, be social, ask for help. Before law school, I was a very much do it myself kind of student. I didn't like working with others. But in law school, the work was so hard that I kind of had to rely on others. Other people sometimes had to rely on me. So it became natural to work with others. And I think that's why I made the closest friends that I have now, because we went through that. We struggled with it together. We helped each other when we needed. And now I have lasting relationships from that. So now let's talk a little bit about what does law school success look like? Some of you might think, what does it mean to do well in law school? Is it graduating within the top 5%, top 10, being involved in extracurriculars, those kind of things? For all these people or anybody asking those questions, I'd advise you that, doing well academically is important. It does matter, but for my personal experience, I got involved in very practical things. There's something called ADR, Alternative Dispute Resolution Services. And what it is it's an organization that encompasses mediation, negotiation, arbitration, which are all informal ways that parties can resolve a case without the need for trial. And I was on the competition team at Chapman University. I was the president of the mediation team. And I found that very, very practical. There are skills that I need today. I negotiate on almost all of my cases, and I developed those skills solely because I got involved in that team. Before law school, I didn't like negotiation. I thought it was very uncomfortable, asking someone else to do something for you and this kind of bantering or exchange of desires. But in law school, I found that you can actually be a very nice person during negotiation and simply uphold your client's interests and get the result that your client wants. So it doesn't have to be a very antagonistic kind of approach. And I thought that was really cool. I didn't know that before. I thought it was all aggressive. I want this, you want this. And, someone's going to win at the end of the day. And truth is, a lot of times there's a win-win scenario that just needs a creative mind to find that out. So learned a lot practically because of that. And all of this is to say that doing well in law school matters. Certain jobs require that you're in a certain percentage, but just don't forget that it's also more about learning. Law school, more than any other, I think, educational level, is about really practically learning what kind of attorney you want to be. Not everybody's the same kind of an attorney. Not everybody has the same skills. And if you put yourself in those situations, like being on a competition team or just networking, you'll figure out what kind of attorney you are. And sometimes that's much more important than doing well. But not to say that doing well is not important. I certainly believe that. Now, moving on, I want to talk a little bit about post-law school. After law school, you usually prep for about 3 months and you take the bar exam. I fortunately passed on the first time. I've been practicing ever since. But even before I learned my results, I signed up for the RCBA, which is the program that's partnered with your school to put on this today. And I got involved in the New Attorney Academy, which is an academy exclusive to new attorneys, but also maybe older attorneys that have just recently got into the field. And I'm very grateful I did that. Riverside doesn't really have to offer this class, but our community cares about the quality of the attorneys that it has. And for that reason, it puts on a several-week class, which trains new attorneys about the basics of practicing law. And while in this academy, I met some members of the Barristers Board including our current president, David Rivera, and Summer DeVore, who's actually here today. They invited me to a happy hour, and the rest is history. I got signed up for barristers. I applied for and was voted in as a board member. And now I'm doing a lot of cool things like this seminar today. In a couple weeks, we'll do a gift wrapping event where we basically wrap gifts for those that are less fortunate. But it's really, the barristers program is really just a fun social club where you give back, you do things for the community. And I know that may be a long ways away for some of you, and you're thinking of the here and now, law school applications, the LSAT. But I encourage you to sign up for a barrister's board event. We offer several happy hours and other social events. And our board in majority, there's a board in a majority of counties. So if you're not in Riverside County, most of you probably are because you're at UCR, but there's boards in every county or almost every county that you can get signed up for. But for me, the barrister's experience has been extremely enriching. It helped my professional career through networking and learning from attorneys more experienced than myself. And even more importantly, I've made some genuine and lasting friendships along the way, and real friendships, not just work friendships. And I think that's important. So for me, fortunately, I feel connected to my career in a way that's meaningful. And I encourage you to always network, reach out to someone, ask for help. And with that said, if you have any other questions or just want to talk or anything like that, you can reach out to my office number. It's 951-688-7000. Again, that's 951-688-7000. I'd be happy to talk about a shadowing opportunity, an internship, or things like that. You can also email me at my direct email. It's Nolan, my first name, Nolan, at hbklaw.net. That's Nolan at H as in Henry, B as in boy, K as in kite, law.net. Feel free to contact me anytime. And thanks everyone for having me.
Thank you so much, Nolan. That's fantastic. And I'm sure quite a few people will take you up on it. So hopefully you aren't flooded with requests, but we really appreciate you making that offer. Next up is Cecia Lucero with the Riverside County Office of the District Attorney.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Cecia Lucero. As Justine just said, I work here in Riverside County, not too far away from your guys' school. I'm located at the downtown office and I work for the district attorney. I want to apologize ahead of time if I seem a little scatterbrained. I didn't write out a speech or anything for this. I had a kind of a chaotic morning. So I'm going to be kind of winging it, but I think as a DA, that's kind of what you do. So I want to first start off by talking to you all a little bit about my law school experience and just my experience in general. I always knew since I think junior year of high school that I wanted to be a DA. I found that going to law school, when I talked to other people, it was always the people who wanted to do criminal law. They kind of already knew, hey, yeah, I've always had this passion. That's something that I wanted to do. That's why I went to law school. I feel like within the criminal field, that's kind of common. Not to say that, if you don't have that passion, it's definitely not required. But it's just something that's common within the criminal field. I feel like it's kind of an area that you just kind of generally know if you want to do or not. So with that said, I always knew that I wanted to go to law school to become a DA. That was my only focus for going to law school. So what I want to explain to you all is, it's very common for people not to know, hey, I know I want to go to law school. I want to be a lawyer. I just don't know what type of lawyer. I feel like that's probably 90% of people's experience in law school. If you do know what you want to go to law school for, great. I could have a whole nother separate conversation about, because I think that the steps that you take in taking the LSAT, what school you go to, it just helps make your path a little bit more clear if you know what kind of law that you want to get into. But if you don't, that's totally fine. What my recommendation to everyone is that the LSAT does matter. And I've heard recently, I've been practicing for 5 years now. I graduated law school in 2018. I've heard recently that now schools aren't requiring the LSAT, that they require the GRE. I don't fact check me on that. I really have no idea. So I can't speak to, how whether they consider the GRE versus the LSAT, that type of thing. But um, back when I applied, the LSAT was important. I am not a good test taker. I'm gonna tell everyone that. I'm not a good test taker at all. However, because I knew that I wanted to be a DA and go into criminal law, your law school that you go to does not matter. Your grades do not matter as much as, say, if you want to join a civil firm, as Nolan was talking about earlier. So my personal experience is very different, because I kind of knew, hey, C's get degrees, and I wanted to be a DA. But of course, obviously, I put in a lot of effort anyway. So in going to law, and I wanted to, just as a pride thing, I was like, hey, I want to get into the best law school that I could get into. So I took the LSAT. I actually ended up taking it twice. The reason for that was because I wasn't super happy with my first score. Like I said, I'm not a good test taker. I can't even remember what company I used. I just know that the closest one that it was being offered was actually at the UCR campus. So I spent the summer before my senior year taking the course over there. I can't remember which company it was that was doing it. I wasn't that happy with my score though. The LSAT is kind of a beast of its own. I had never taken any tests like that. It kind of requires you to think in a different way. And so because of that, I would definitely recommend doing a course, not trying to study on your own, because it's those teachers who are teaching the course that are going to tell you, like, give you the best tips on, hey, this is going to set you up for success in taking the LSAT. With that said, I took it the second time during my senior year, at the beginning of my senior year, and I did not take that second LSAT exam seriously at all. I had senioritis. I did not want to focus on that second LSAT. So I ended up taking the exam and not reporting my score, because walking out, I felt like I had no idea what that score was going to be. And back then, I don't know if it's still the same now. I think that they had averaged your scores. And so I thought that I had scored a little bit lower just because I didn't feel confident in that second exam. So I ended up not reporting it. So all that I had reported was that single score the first time that I took it. And that's what I applied to law school with. So my recommendation in terms of the LSAT, definitely take it seriously, especially if you're someone that you think, hey, look, I want to go to a big law firm. I want to be in a major city, New York City law firms, that sort of thing, because the better LSAT score that you get, you're just gonna have more opportunities in terms of more of a selection of law schools that you want to go to. So I always tell people who are kind of undecided that just send out as many applications to law schools as you can. Also, Nolan said that he had applied to 20 schools. I personally don't think that that's insane. I like having options, I can't even remember how many I applied to, but I definitely applied to a lot also. Um, let's see. So that was kind of my LSAT experience. Um, when it came to picking a law school, I also definitely recommend, as Nolan and Summer said, interning right now while you're in college, or even shadowing for a day, a week, whatever it is, in something that interests you, because that is going to help you a lot. When I was in college, I actually interned here at the DA's office in Riverside County. Like I said, I knew I wanted to be a DA. I just didn't know where I wanted to be a DA at. I'm originally from Riverside County. I grew up here. So I said, let me start here, see if this is somewhere that I want to come back to, check out what the office is like. I met a mentor here during that summer experience while I was in college. And I, just picked people's brains, and him specifically. I was like, what law school did you go to? He told me, oh, I went to Hastings. UC Hastings in San Francisco. And I was like, I've never even heard of that school before. Now, fast forward a few years later, when it was time for me to apply, I remember that conversation. I was like, you know what, let me apply here. I had gotten accepted to a few different schools, and I went to go and check them out. I kind of had my heart set on leaving California and going to the East Coast just to get a different experience. But when I went to go and visit that school on the East Coast, I had an off vibe about it. And then when I went to go and visit Hastings, I just kind of fell in love. It just felt like home. It felt like the right place for me. So I would definitely recommend going to visit the, law schools that you're interested in and see if it's a fit for you. Because, I thought maybe going to the East Coast was going to be better, but after visiting, I wasn't a fan. So that was something that definitely, weighed heavily in my decision to stay in California. Not only that, but I also knew I'm going to be in California. I'm going to stay in California. I want to take the California bar exam. So not that it 100% matters, where you go to law school, but it does help, when you're going to take the California bar exam and you go to school in California. Let's see, what else do I want to say? So I ended up going to school here, law school here in Northern California. And after that, my law school experience, I did not like it. So I had kind of have a complete opposite experience from Nolan. I had always been a good student in college, but when I came to law school, you are competing with other people that are just as bright, just as smart as you, if not the smartest. So I struggled a lot with my confidence. I am, a first generation college student, first generation person to go to law school. And so imposter syndrome is real, and it's still real. It's something that I deal with every single day at work. What really got me through law school was surrounding myself with a very good support group, peers who were kind of similarly situated to me. That kind of just gave me that reassurance and that confidence. Hey, you made it this far. You got it. You got through college. You made it into law school. You belong here. This is something that you deserve, and you just got to work hard. So that's something, just having that confidence in the back of my head, even in my lowest moments, was something that definitely carried me on. And even through studying for the bar exam, like mentally, it's mentally challenging, and so you feel like, hey, I'm not good enough. I can't do this. But if there's one thing that I want you to leave this, meeting with, and I know that all of you guys are still in college, it's that, like, hey, look, you worked your butt off to get where you're at. You are deserving. Continue to work hard and have that confidence. Just have that light, and don't let anyone dim that, because I know that it's hard, but that's something that is going to take you far. Yeah, I think I'm kind of running out of time here, but that's kind of what I just wanted to leave everyone with. I definitely work better with like question and answer type environments, so I'm hoping that I can answer more questions at the end of the segment. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Cecia. And yes, absolutely, we're going to have lots of time for Q&A at the end. But thank you so much for sharing all of that. Next up, we have Matt Neufeld with Varner and Brandt.
Hi, everyone. I actually have a presentation here today, but many of the topics I put on here just echo what Nolan, Summer, and Cecia have said, but also share it with you guys, so that way, for the people that are like me that like to take notes, it could be a little helpful for you guys to be able to go through and write down what we have today. So as you said, my name is Matt Neufeld. Before I share a little bit, I just really wanted to thank the RCBA for inviting me again. I came a few years ago when we had that pre-law event, and specifically for David Rivera, the president of our Barristers Association, for reaching out to me, as well as Justine Ross and my fellow panelists. I know many of them through the RCBA. So just a little background about me. I was born and raised in Redlands, California, and I currently live there with my wife. I'm an attorney for Varner and Brandt, as she said. I work in their labor and employment and business litigation teams here in Riverside and downtown. And just kind of what I do, a little bit of what I do is representing clients in court and administrative hearings in all phases of litigation. I also counsel employers with any business and employment matters that they have questions about. So although my education, I did go to UCR. I graduated in 2014 with a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. And then after that, I ended up going to law school in Virginia at William and Mary, which is known for being the first law school in the United States. And I also, like Nolan, I included my contact information. I encourage you guys to write down my email. I help students all the time that are interested in going to law school. It's one of the passions that I have. I love that people in our region want to go to law school. We're in desperate need for people that want to be paralegals, legal assistants, and lawyers here in the community. So kind of like my journey in law school was somewhat unique. I didn't know I wanted to be a lawyer. My dad is actually an attorney here and he's a partner at this law firm, but most of my family's in the healthcare industry. For example, my wife's a dentist, my aunts, uncles, they're nurses, doctors. So I was kind of the odd one out that decided they wanted to go to law school, even though, like I said, my dad was an attorney. Again, actually, my freshman and sophomore year, I was actually taking pre-med classes up until my junior year, where I decided I wanted to be an actuary solely because I read in one of my business management books that it was the second least stressful job in America behind a musical instrument repair. So clearly, I completely changed paths because the law profession is stressful, but it is rewarding, as my fellow panelists have shared with you guys. So after a little pressure from my parents, I decided that I would consider other career paths other than an actuary. And that kind of led me to consider the law profession. So when I was doing an internship for UCR, we had to get an internship in some type of business field. And I chose an internship at the Riverside County Economic Development Agency. And what I liked about that is that's where I discovered my passion to help businesses in our region grow, whether it's hiring more employees or do more business internationally. So, and I also was able to connect with influential lawyers in our community. So there's Jeff Van Wagenen, who is our county executive officer, Richard Roth, who's our state senator, and they're very supportive and encouraging for me to consider going to law school. And after doing a bunch of research, I actually was able to come to my own conclusion that it did make sense to go to law school. And I was able to study for the LSAT while I was working at the County of Riverside for my 1 year off after I graduated. So a lot of the things that they all talked about, how did I prepare to apply to law school? So since I didn't really have family and friends that had gone to law school recently, I did a lot of research on these forums, the law school websites. They have a lot of good information for you guys. I also attended UCR's graduate professional and law school event. It was there that I was able to meet a lot of the people that actually are in the admissions office for these law schools. And they'll actually offer you fee waivers, which is nice because applying to law school is expensive. Like Cecia and Nolan, I applied to a lot of schools, and part of the reason I was able to do that was because I was able to obtain these fee waivers from these law school admissions offices that attended the UCR event. Additionally, I learned that you can email these law school admission offices if you're interested in going there. And basically, if you tell them that you have some monetary constraints or you're interested in working in that area or you really want to work or learn from their program, they'll also offer you fee waivers, which is nice to reduce all the costs and applications. Another thing that I did that I recommend you all do if you can, and this is a good opportunity, is you speak with your family, friends, colleagues, or anyone that you know that about the process of applying to law school and also just their law school experience. I had more of a similar experience to Cecia where I didn't really like law school that much, but I did enjoy the people I met and I valued the skills that we learned while we were there. And then lastly, like she did, I visited all the law schools that I was interested in applying to. So on the next slide, I'll kind of show you some of the schools, or in a couple of slides, I'll show you the couple of schools that I visited and I was considering going to. So these are some things that I considered when I was deciding what schools I wanted to apply to. Location, which has to do with where you want to practice, cost of tuition. Back when I was in law school 6 years ago, it was around 40 to 50,000, depending on the school you wanted to go to. Scholarships, so a lot of schools, if you do well in the LSAT primarily, they'll offer you scholarships. So there are several schools that even offer full rides and offer to pay for your books and stuff like that, as well as where I wanted to work long-term, the programs that offered at the school, which include clinics, which are helpful for practical experience, the size of the class. So there are some schools that have 450 per class. The school that I went to was closer to 180. And then the bar pass rate, because ultimately we don't want to get too much into the bar, but that's kind of the whole goal when you go to law school, is to make sure you pass the bar. So then that way you can actually service your clients in the community here. So these are just a list of some of the schools that I applied to. I thought I wanted to work in California, so I mostly applied to all the Southern California schools around the area, as well as a couple in Northern California. And then additionally, I wasn't sure if I wanted to work in government, so I applied to some of the schools in Virginia and DC, as well as a couple other areas. A lot of it, again, had to do with the fact that I was able to get fee waivers. So, and I actually was able to visit these schools, which I highly recommend, like I said, that you guys do. Ultimately, though, I did choose William and Mary because I wanted to practice in the DC area. I liked that they did offer me a job to go there as a research assistant and working for the clinic, which was very unique because typically law schools don't want you to work your first year because you need to focus on doing your best that you can in the classes. But I'm a very practical learner, so I really valued that they gave me that opportunity. And also they just gave a lot of scholarship money. So and they had very few students that ever lost that scholarship money. So that was very important to me because what you'll learn, a lot of these schools, they'll post on their websites how many scholarships that they offer and the requirements that you have to do to keep it, whether it's your grades or being a certain top percentage of the class. And William and Mary didn't have a record for people losing their scholarships very often. So what was law school like for me? There's honestly lots of reading to prepare for class. I wasn't the biggest reader before I went, but I knew I wanted to gain that skill. So I'm thankful I went to law school to be able to do that. But there is still time to do things that you're interested in. Kind of to echo what everyone else said, they're very intelligent people there. That's part of the reason why I was worried about potentially losing your scholarship, because you're dealing with the best of the best, right? But you also get to learn from the best. And the one thing to remember, especially going to school on the East Coast, is there's a lot of people and they come from all different backgrounds. So a lot of people want to, there's a lot of competition involved, but you don't feel like you have to compare yourself to them. Everyone has a different path. You don't have to follow the same path, which is important. And although you have to take certain classes your first year, after that, you can kind of choose the classes you want to take in your second and third year, which is what I did, and kind of focus in on the things that you're interested in. So just kind of overview, there's a heavy emphasis, like I said, in reading, writing. You also get to improve on your speaking skills, collaborating with others, like Nolan said, and then ultimately just how you critically think, which is important when you become a lawyer. And then just at that bottom bullet point there, when I talk to prospective law students, there's this book on Amazon, and you can get an older version. It's called One Hell of a Ride. It kind of just gives you an idea of what the first year of law school is like. I had never taken a law class before I went to law school, so I had no idea. So I highly recommend that you purchase that, even a used copy, just skim it, and you can kind of have an idea of what law school will be like. I just listed a few things that they don't tell you about law school. For example, for many of my classes, your entire grade was based on one test at the end of semester, which is kind of stressful. But as long as you keep up on your reading, make your outlines, you'll do all right. Another thing is, like I said previously, not everyone is going to take the same professional path. So people will be in government, private practice, politics. So you don't need to feel like just because someone's doing something, you need to follow exactly what they're doing. Another thing is you don't have to know exactly which area of law you're going to practice, because, for example, I didn't, but when I found out, I was able to focus in on taking more employment-based classes, which was nice, and business-based classes, which made it feel like I kind of had a fast track when I started my job here at Varner Brandt. And then lastly, just something that I didn't even know existed was there's these example and explanation books. And for me, when I just read a case in law school, I didn't know how that applies or what law was going on. So these examples and explanation books are really helpful, and they'll be in your school library for you just to better understand your courses. So these are some tips that I have for professional success while in law school. Be organized, spend your time wisely, kind of like what everyone else said, make good friends that you can study and collaborate with. If you're a practical learner like me, work at externships or internships. Your schools will have clinics, even if it's not necessarily an area that you want to work in. They have good things for you to do. Join the clubs and bar associations that like Nolan was talking about. Be open to networking, customize your class schedule, and make sure to take some of the bar classes. I didn't take all of them, and I wish I did. And then one thing that some people don't know is that your summer job actually, especially in your second year, can lead to employment. So where you work, they often can offer you a job, especially, and then that's helpful. So it's one less thing you have to worry about in your third year. And then lastly, I just kind of wanted to share a little bit about Varner Brandt because I had a lot of questions about that last time that I did this event. So we're a full service law firm in Riverside in Ontario. We offer a wide range of things from corporate, business, labor and employment, litigation, and we just have a little bit of the history. We've been around for around 26 years. It was founded by Bruce. His son is actually our managing partner now, Sean, and we just continue to grow, and we're always looking to grow more. So on this next slide, everyone on the last event that I did, they had asked if we were hiring, and the answer is yes, and we're hiring at all levels. So whether you're interested once you're actually an attorney, or if you want some summer experience as a file clerk or runner, or while you're in school, we're totally open to doing that. At our last event, we actually hired 2 people that attended there that I met at that event. And one of them is actually going to UC Hastings, now called University of San Francisco or something like that, law school. And we're really happy for her. And she's going to come back and work for us this summer. So I encourage you to go on our career page if now's not the best time, but in the future you're seeking it, and you can kind of see what the law firm experience is like. So I know we'll get to questions later, but I just want to thank everyone and thank the RCBA and UCR for having me again, and look forward to your questions afterwards.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt. That's amazing. And I'm sure you're going to have lots of takers. All of you are going to be very, very busy with UCR students, which we, again, appreciate so much. Last up is Gabriela Rodriguez. Just a reminder that everybody, make sure you're submitting your questions. A lot of you are, which is great, but we will begin Q&A right after Gabriela's presentation. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. I just want to say first thing is that the fact that you are all here means that you're already doing great things in preparing to go to law school if that's what you choose to do. So this is going to be really helpful among other things that we can talk about later. So my name is Gabriela. I'm from Atkinson, Andelson, Loya, Root, and Romo. We have, I think we have 9 offices, if I'm not mistaken, both in SoCal and Northern California. I'm in the Riverside office in downtown Riverside. We do a lot of different things. We have corporate work, we have private labor employment, we do public labor and employment, just kind of a general service. However, I do general education law. So I represent educational entities, mostly K through 12, but our firm generally also does community colleges as well as 4-year institutions as well. So it is definitely a more specialized area of law. It's probably not one that you might hear of in law school. I know I've heard there are a couple places, maybe such as Loyola, that has education law courses, but I really enjoy it, and it's a really good area to consider. So I went to UCLA for my undergrad. I went to USC Gould for my law school. So I've always been based in Southern California. I grew up in Chino Hills, which is a city, a small city in the Inland Empire. So, I've always been centrally located in Southern California, which kind of goes towards why I made my decision to attend school in California, which I'll talk about in a moment. But in terms of my journey to law school, so I actually had a lot of similarities to Cecia. I wanted to be an attorney since I was pretty young. I think I have a classmate from 7th grade that still told me, like, when I passed the bar, I'm in my 3rd year of practice, and said, I remember when you told me in 7th grade that you wanted to be an attorney. So I thought that was funny that she remembered that. But yeah, so I wanted to do it for a really long time, which is kind of ironic because I don't have anyone in my family that is an attorney. I did not know any attorneys. I think it kind of, there's a couple things. I was always very into true crime. My mom and I would watch it a lot growing up. And I thought, oh, that seems so interesting and cool. I want to be a criminal attorney. Mind you, maybe now in current times it's different, but at that time as a child, I also didn't think that there was any highlight or spotlight on civil attorneys much. So I was like, I don't even, like, I didn't know what that was. So at that point, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to be a criminal attorney. Maybe I'll be a DA or a PD. And then I got into, further into school, and I noticed I excelled when it came to reading and writing. I liked, communicating with others, working with others. So I thought, okay, those are also good skills for being an attorney. So I was like, okay, I'm going to keep going in this direction. Um, and then when I was in my 1st year of undergrad, I met my aunt's neighbor, who, it was ironically because we were in Orange County, and he actually is an excellent criminal defense attorney here in Riverside. And he was like, "Oh, I heard you were interested in attending law school. If you want to come to my firm and work this summer and kind of just help with anything I might need, you're welcome to come." So I was like, oh, wow, like that's a great opportunity. So I went ahead and I did that, and he did really amazing work. But I also like to think that I'm a very like reflective and like self-aware person, and I thought, you know what? I don't know if I can do criminal law. I am very emotional, and it's hard for me to compartmentalize. I can see that my work might come home with me, and that's not to put that down. I think it's amazing to do that work, but for me personally, I didn't think that that was going to work out for me. So I thought, okay, I'm not sure, but I'll keep thinking on it. In law school, or I mean, not in law school, in undergrad, I did another criminal internship, and that was also great and a great experience. But again, I was like, okay, you know what? Now that I have more understanding and I've done more research, I know now that there's opportunities within the civil realm. So then I was like, okay, I'm gonna still go to law school. Everything is kind of going as planned, but I'm gonna do civil law now. Which is why I think it is really helpful to do those internships and talk to other attorneys or reach out to attorneys that have, let you know that they're open to talking to you, so you can get more of a concept of what it's like to work in that practice area. What does your day-to-day look like? Is that something that you could picture yourself enjoying? So that is really important. I know there's a lot of questions in the chat about that, and it's definitely a good thing to do if you can. That's not to say, as Nolan was saying, that's not to say if you don't have a billion legal internships that you can't go to law school or you shouldn't apply. I just think that it is helpful. So I went straight through. I took the LSAT my junior year. So I think the way that the timing works out is they recommend generally, if possible, to study the summer before your senior year, or even sooner if possible. But that's when they know, like, hypothetically, if you are in a place where you can take off that summer and you don't have anything else that you have to worry about financially or family wise, that you study during that summer. So that's what I did. I didn't work that summer, which I traditionally had done internships or part-time jobs. So I just focused on studying for the LSAT because I was just sure I wanted to do this since 7th grade. So I didn't see any point in taking a gap year for myself personally. So I decided I was going to do that. And then I chose to apply to SoCal. So I see the question a couple times about, is the bar exam specific to California? It is. There are some states that have what's called the uniform bar exam, and you can get a score that admits you to several states. That's not the case in California. There might be small exceptions that I don't know about, but I've only practiced here. So I decided I wanted to apply to SoCal schools specifically. I was actually admitted off the wait list. So if you guys have kind of questions about that, sorry, my light goes out. But that being said, don't count yourself out. Apply broadly if you can afford to. I think I applied to like 15. And the way that I did that was I did some target schools, which is like schools that you should be admitted to based on the data of your LSAT and your GPA. And you can find that information on the law school website. You should have some reach schools. USC was a reach school for me. And then some, I forget the term, but like the ones that you for sure, safety schools that you for sure will get it. So you want to kind of apply broadly. And I don't think I have much time left. Something that surprised me. I do think it's important to be very honest about the cost of law school. It is really expensive. It's expensive to take a prep course for the LSAT. It's expensive to make an account. It's expensive to apply to the schools. It's expensive when you're in law school. You can't work for the first year. And I think that's something that is really important to consider if you're in a situation like Summer talked about. Maybe you want to consider going to a program where you can work full time if that's a need. But yeah, so that is something that's surprising, but you do want to be ready for. What else do we have here? In terms of tips or tricks, I thought I didn't have the best time in law school. It is really hard to go into an environment where every single person is like you almost. It's hard to, and you also have to understand that not everyone can get an A. There's a curve. So I went from someone who got an A almost all the time to now not always getting an A and having to be happy with a B. And I think a couple times, maybe even a C. So that was really hard for me to kind of mentally grasp. But that's not to say that's going to ruin your life. I think when I was going through it, I felt like law school, everything was the end of the world. Oh, you didn't get into the top journal, it's the end of the world. You weren't the top of your class. But then now looking back, I still have been able to secure like wonderful internships, great jobs. I make great money and I love what I do. So don't think that that's the end of the world. And I think that's it. But as everyone said, I'm happy to answer any questions via email or during the Q&A session as well. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Gabriella. So at this point, we're going to give our events team that's working hard behind the scenes a second just to spotlight all of the panelists. And then once everybody is up on the screen, we're going to have Rayon, who is an ambassador with the School of Public Policy, start reading out some of the questions that were asked. And I did ask him, there were some questions that were very similar that I thought could be combined or maybe aggregated. So if you submitted a question and it isn't read word for word, we're still going to get to everybody. We're just sort of combining to be efficient with our time. And so before I turn it over to Rayon, I also want to encourage, well, first of all, thank the panelists so much for sharing all of your experience and, you know, even sort of the smaller anecdotes about imposter syndrome or even like the enormous expense of law school are things that often aren't talked about, I think. And it's really, really important for students to hear as they're preparing to make this decision. So, if you guys have questions for one another, if as we're doing the Q&A, you think maybe there's a good angle or maybe you want to direct something to somebody else, you're welcome to do so. And we'll try to get this sort of as free flowing as we can. So with that, Rayon, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. So we have over 28 different questions in the chat right now. So I'm going to try to get through as many of these as quickly as possible. So a few of our questions, including some anonymous attendees, ask, what are the biggest priorities in terms of our undergraduate degree that we need to focus on right now before we start applying to law school? Whether that might be letters of recommendations, how to practice for the LSAT, speaking with professors and getting that contact information, you know, maybe it's prioritizing certain jobs. So just to get your input on that, if anyone would feel free to unmute and answer this question first, that'd be great.
I'll go ahead and go because I think it speaks to my experience. GPA, 1,000%. So I had an okay LSAT score. I took it twice. It's not impressing anybody, but it's not horrible. But my GPA, I really think that's what got me into the schools that it got me into. I was able to get some scholarships as well. So yes, you want to get some internships as you get later down the line. Consider your letters of rec. But 100% your GPA is what you can control right now. So I would put the emphasis on that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Before I move on, would anyone else like to chime in on other priorities that undergraduate students should focus in before attending or applying for law schools?
I'll add one thing. I recommend they just look into the whole application process and what you need, because a lot of people, they wait to the last minute, and it's difficult to get those letters of recommendation right before, and who are you going to get them from? And when you go to a big school like UCR, your professors may not know you as well. So it's important that you still develop those relationships with them so that they're willing to do so, and they don't give you those. I mean, I don't know how much the schools actually weigh them, but at least you have them done, and you can just kind of check mark that off your box before you go to law school.
Definitely. Thank you. I think that's going to be super useful for a lot of the students here in attendance. So next we have a question from Laura Asuna. She's asking specifically Miss Lucero, when did you specifically start working with the DA's office? And then did you get any experience prior to that? And then additionally to that, some anonymous attendees also want to ask Ms. Lucero how they could find shadow opportunities at the DA's office. So if you wouldn't mind expanding on that.
Yeah, so like I said, for me, I always knew that I wanted to be a DA. So I want to say it was the summer of sophomore year in college going into junior year that I actually interned here at the DA's office in Riverside County. I came back down for summer. I went to school up in the Bay for undergrad, and I came back down for my summers to spend time with my family. I didn't really have too much going on. Back then, there wasn't really like a formal undergraduate internship that we did here. Now there is, like, we have a full-on like formal thing for undergrad students, and then also separate for law students. Unfortunately, I don't have like the specific information on like how to go about applying for that or anything like that, but I will give you guys all my email address, and if you email me, I'll be sure to get that information for you. But I think all other counties, like even if you live in different counties, I'm pretty sure all of them are open to having college interns. Like you don't have to be a law student to do it. You could get started now, even if it's just shadowing, reaching out. You could just like go to the DA's office, whatever county you're at, walk in and just be like, hey, who can I talk to that's in charge of like your guys's HR or recruiting? Because most counties have like a recruitment specifically team that will handle, they'll be able to answer questions like that. So I think that you guys could get started on that now. Was there a second part to that question? Sorry.
Oh, they were wondering, or another anonymous attendee was wondering how they could start getting involved in shadowing at the DA's office.
Yeah, so it's going to be kind of the same thing. You could do it in college. Right now, I think that I'm not sure here in Riverside County in particular if we've got like a winter session versus a summer session. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm more than happy to ask around to get that information to you if you just email me, and I will somehow figure out how to give you guys my email. Should I do that now? Or
yeah,
is it possible for someone to share it? Okay.
Yeah,
so
or I can send out to the attendees afterwards a list of the email addresses that were shared, so that way you guys don't have to worry about it, reading about right now, and that way everyone will get them still.
yes,
that's amazing.
Just to save time, I will
Yeah.
have that.
And it'll also help answer quite a few of the questions in chat. Speaking of some other of the questions in chat.
Rayan, actually, sorry, I'm going to do a shameless plug and shoehorn in on the back of this. So if you're looking to intern at the DA's office or the public defender's office in either Riverside or San Bernardino counties, the Presses Center actually offers an internship program where we place students with those agencies. And so if you're interested, the call is going to go live right before winter break. Applications won't be due, I think, until early February. But check our website. I'll email that out as well. And just keep an eye out. We have the DA and public defender on our advisory board, and we love to send really promising, engaged students their way. So keep an eye out.
Awesome. Thank you. So we have quite a few questions regarding letters of recommendation. So we have one from Lydia, Rana, and an anonymous attendee, and they're all asking, when is the best time to get your letters of recommendation in for applying for law schools? Should they be written by professors who teach law school related classes? Should I take a gap year in undergraduate and then after that get my letters of recommendation? Or should I be focusing while I'm still in my undergrad to get those letters of recommendations in and written before I even start thinking about law schools? So if anyone would feel free to unmute and answer that. Thank you.
I can take this question. Thank you. I'd say I would do it a little bit earlier if possible. The reason being is a lot of times the person that you're asking for a letter of recommendation, whether it be a professor or some professional that you've worked under in the past, a lot of them are very busy. And sometimes, at least in my experience, sometimes it takes a while for them to get that letter of recommendation for you. So I think the earlier the better. That said, on the other hand, you want to make sure it's timely. So I wouldn't necessarily say you should get one a year prior to the application process because a lot can change in 1 year. So I'd like it to be, or in my own personal opinion, I would have liked it to be the same year. And I would also recommend that you diversify who's giving you a letter of recommendation. For me, I was in athletics throughout high school and college, so I got a letter of recommendation from my coaches. I got a letter of recommendation from prior employers, from professors. So you have a mixed bag of people that are professionals or just people that know you very well speaking highly of you rather than just academics or alternatively just athletics. You have a wide variety of people that can attest to your capabilities.
Definitely. Thank you
If
so
I
much for
could
sharing. Oh,
add to that real quick.
yes.
I would say the application process, some of them tell you how many letters of recommendation you need. And some of them have a little bit more specific stuff. So depending on what law school you want to apply to, maybe see what their requirements are, and that'll help you determine how many and who to ask.
Yeah, I think that specification is actually extremely helpful as well. So we have a question from Eva Cervantes. This one is specifically directed to Ms. Rodriguez, Ms. Lucero, and Ms. DeVore. How has your gender played a role in your work?
I would say it's been interesting. I don't think anything specific. I know that just being a newer attorney in general kind of has its impacts because you have very seasoned attorneys that have been practicing a lot longer than you, and I think that is the bigger issue, not so much a gender issue. And it's just being able to be confident in what you know, the facts of your case, and being true to who you are.
In terms of like my day-to-day, I have to say, when I was newer, when I had first started out and not too many people like knew who I was when I went to court, as a DA or a public defender, you're in court every single day. So I would say that I had never really like felt, I guess, any issues of being a female as I had when I first started going to court. And it was mostly comments from older men. There are a ton of older men that you will see in court that have worked there, defense attorneys, whoever it is. And the comments come from like your dress, that sort of thing. I mean, just very old school. So unfortunately, like I wish I could say that I hadn't experienced any of that, but it is still pretty real. I have to say now that I'm 5 years in and I have more experience and people know me in the court, I think that people respect me now that they know me a little bit more. I definitely don't have that as much as it was when I was younger, and I feel like times are changing right now. Like there's so many females, like when we get our law students, I'm like, yeah, we have so many more females than males now. So I'm like, I feel like times are changing and I love that. So keep it up.
Yeah, fortunately, I haven't had any specific incidents. I kind of echo what Summer said. There have in one of your less experienced, and the fact that I went straight through. So I think it's a little bit, and people have told me I have a very young face. So I have gotten several comments like, "Oh, like you're old enough to be an attorney. Like, are you sure?" And I don't know if they're based in gender, but I feel like probably less likely that a male would have those types of comments, but you just you're there to do your job, and you just have to be prepared and confident in whatever task you're completing at that time.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for your responses. I'm sure that's going to be extremely insightful to a lot of our audience. So we have another question here from Italia Garcia. She's wondering, how can we approach our personal statement if we aren't sure of what type of law we want to practice yet?
I guess I'll take this one. So I don't think in my personal statement, I guess you have to look at first the prompts that the law schools that you apply to are giving you, because each law school is going to be different. Some will just ask for, tell us about yourself, you know what I mean? But some are going to be a lot more specific. And at least from my experience, I don't recall ever having to write about like, oh, my interest in law, that sort of thing, even though I already knew my reasons for wanting to go to law school because I wanted to be a DA. I just remember more focusing on like just my personal life, my experience, my background, and why I felt like I would be a good fit, as opposed to a specific area of law, if that makes sense. But it's also been a while. So I mean, I don't know if things have changed, but that's kind of what I remember.
No, awesome. Thank you. I think that's going to be very helpful as well. We have a ton of questions in the chat currently asking about best practices and things that they should be doing right now in their undergraduate to start studying for the LSAT. So if you guys wouldn't mind specifying on, are there any other, because I know we went through some other book recommendations, are there any other book recommendations for students prepping for law school, or some of the best resources and programs, or even another attendee asks, what are the best classes that they should be taking right now at their university to be able to ensure that they have the best experience going into law school and that they're the most prepared? So I'll just open that up to the floor.
I just wanted to touch on the LSAT real quick. I know when I was studying, I did not do a prep course. I did it all myself. There's a lot of LSAT books. I was fortunate enough to kind of balance out my LSAT score with my GPA, so that's something to take into consideration. But I believe it was Kaplan next to Substation. There was Kaplan when I was studying for the LSAT, and they did a free LSAT like study, like a practice exam. So I got up 8 a.m. like I was going to go take the exam. It was completely free. I took it till noon. It's a couple hours, and then they sent me my scores. And then based upon that, I was able to gauge kind of what areas I needed to study, because the LSAT's kind of broken up into different categories. And you can kind of focus on that. So when you go take the real one, you've had an experience of what it kind of is like to sit there for 3 hours and take this exam. And like I said, it was free at the time. So I would encourage you to look into that.
Awesome. Yeah.
I'll just add to summer too. The class that I actually took, Test Masters, they were known for having the most pre-test. So it was a very expensive course, like Nolan said, and I took it at UCR. But it is helpful to sit down and actually take those tests, because it is a stamina race, honestly, when you're in there. With regards to the actual classes you need to take, it's nice that UCR does offer some law classes now. Maybe they did when I was there. I just didn't take any of them. So I felt kind of like the odd one out when I went to law school again. But if you can take some of those, it's just nice to kind of have an idea of things like constitutional law and a couple of the other classes that people had general knowledge of that I didn't when going into law school your first year.
Awesome. Yeah, that's extremely helpful. I'm actually enrolled in constitutional law right now, so it's good to know that I'm following in the right steps. Ms. Rodriguez, was there something you wanted to add there before I move on?
Oh, I was gonna just mention the LSAT, I think it's the LSAT Bibles, if anyone remembers. Those ones are also highly recommended in terms of LSAT preparation. And then just echoing what they were saying, if you, especially at the beginning, if you take that first diagnostic test, that will tell you a lot about kind of how you want to prepare going forward.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think that's amazing. And so far we've answered 21 questions in total. So I think we have about 15 left. I don't think we'll be able to get to all of them, so I'm going to try to prioritize some of the other questions. This one comes from Alexis Pina. She's asking specifically Mrs. Lucero. I also, after law school, want to work for the district attorney's office. Do you know when they'll be offering any internships for undergrad students, so I can get a head start on the work that you guys really do? Thank you. And then she mentions her name.
I don't, but my email will be provided, and also Justine is probably has all the answers also regarding timing, application, all that stuff. I'm sorry, I wish I came more prepared. I should have anticipated this, but I will get you the answers if you just email me.
Awesome. So moving right along, an anonymous attendee, or actually several anonymous attendees are asking for the panelists to share a little bit about their LSAT scores, if they might feel comfortable actually sharing their specific LSAT scores. How is the bar exam? Can you explain any general gist of the tips of how the bar exam actually works, or any other additional tips? Thank you.
And you guys are totally not obligated, obviously, to
Yes,
share
of
this.
course.
Maybe just your experience with the LSAT more generally, or where you thought you fell within the, your cohort, whatever you're comfortable with.
I don't want to like keep jumping in. So if anyone
Go
else,
ahead. I'll
I
go
have,
after you. I don't care.
I don't care either. You go ahead, Matt.
No, I'll just share first. My goal score was just like 165. I wasn't trying to go to Berkeley or any of those schools. I kind of just based it off what what school would give me the most money eventually. I believe I got 161, which they said it's like +5 or -5 of how you did on your practice, because I was averaging 165 on my practice exams. And once I applied to one school and they offered me a full ride, I said, I'm not going to take another test. So that's kind of just the way for me. Bar prep wise, I'm sure all of us can attest that sucks. That was the worst part, honestly. Studied every day, most of us. For me, it was hard because none of my friends were taking the bar in California. So California is one of the hardest bar exams. Summer, Ceci and I, we had one of the lowest pass rates in like 70 years or something like that. So it was a lot, but I'll let them jump in and share more. But I have no issue sharing that. I just had a goal, and once I hit around that goal, I was good with it.
I too had a personal goal. It was more of a pride ego thing, like I'm not even gonna lie, because like I said, I knew I wanted to be a DA, so there wasn't really that much pressure on like getting into the like best law school, getting the straight A's, and I knew that going in. It was just more of a personal ego thing. So I ended up getting a 157 on my LSAT score, and I felt like I could do better for sure. But again, I'm not a good test taker. I'm just not, like, it's something that I struggle with. And I always have, which for the bar exam or just law school in general, when your whole grade depends on one exam, like it's stressful for sure. But yeah, so I got a 157, and then like I said, I had taken it again, but walking out, I just had this gut feeling, I was like, and they would average it. I don't know if they still do that, but they would average your two scores that you reported. And walking out, I was just like, I just had this gut feeling, and I was like, I don't feel like I did any better. So I didn't end up reporting it. And I wasted a lot of time and money, but it was my fault for sure. Like I have no one but myself to blame, because I didn't take it as seriously as I should have that second time in my studying. But I was studying the beginning of my senior year for that second time, and I was just in party mode. So I don't recommend that at all. Definitely take it seriously, and if you can, take it as early, I think, as Gabriella said, I think it's like the summer before you start your senior year, something like that, but it's been a while.
I'll just touch on this real quick too. I got the worst of all of the scores listed already. I got a 155, took it once, and I didn't want to take it again. It was stressful, and I just wanted to see where I'd land in my application process. And fortunately, I got some scholarship money. I was fortunate enough to have financial aid. And with that said, just for all of you, in law school, there was people that would score a 170, 75 in my cohort, and they didn't do well in law school. Then there's other students that didn't do too well in the LSAT, and they did well in law school. So I will say that law school really is it's a grind. People that typically do well are the ones that are willing to put in the time. It's like anything else. If you invest your time, you'll get the prize as a result. So I'll just say, for those that are really worried about their score, yes, it matters, but just know that it doesn't mean you're not going to be a great law student or a great attorney. It's just another test.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. Thank you everyone actually. And I just want to reiterate again how grateful we are to have you all taking time out of your very busy schedule to be with us all today. So I believe we have time for just one last final question, unless. Okay, awesome. Because this one is actually, so the last question really helps us and it helps a lot of us students help with their strategic decision making and as far as like what the next steps are for us. And one of those biggest barriers for law school, as we kind of talked about, is the financial barrier. So we have a question from Sima Zirakuat, and she's asked, actually, I apologize for that. So an anonymous attendee asks, do you make more money as you continue to build more experience? And does that money match with the location of the law firm or practice? And then we have another attendee ask, does it take a while to build your income depending on the law firm you work at or building at your own practice? So I imagine these questions are trying to think an orientation of tackling that potential student debt that a lot of students might incur as they try to attend law school. So I'll just open that up to the floor.
Yes, location, size of firm, type of practice, it all matters and it all varies a lot. Riverside is not considered a major metropolitan area. It's not going to be the pay scale of downtown Los Angeles, but you're not going to pay downtown Los Angeles housing prices to live here. So that's just all considerations. Generally, and I'm just saying like everything is different, but generally really large law firms, they do pay you more. Sometimes there's a little bit of a downside for that just in terms of work-life balance, but that's all everyone's own preference. And the reason that is because they can bill you at higher rates. This is specific to private law firms. This is not going to be applicable to government or public interest. But my understanding is government and public interest salary will also differ by the location. So hopefully someone else could speak on those things.
Yeah, just because I work in public interest. Every year as a DA or a PD, you have steps, and the more seniority you have, the more you make, for sure. Riverside County in particular recently has been renegotiating our contracts and stuff like that so that we are competitive in terms of like San Bernardino, Orange County, the surrounding counties. But just in general, in government practice, being a DA or a PD, yeah, your income generally increases as you gain more seniority, that sort of thing. Just so you guys know, I think we did recently renegotiate our contract here for Riverside County. So I believe that our starting pay right out of law school, if you get hired here, the starting pay starts at, I want to say, $90,000. So that's significant recent change, just to kind of keep up with the times, because that hadn't been renegotiated. So it's a nice bump. But also one thing that I didn't mention, and please email me if you want to discuss more, but the whole finance things when you go into government work, because I knew I wanted to be a DA. I knew going into law school I wasn't going to work. That was a choice that I knew I was going to take on all of the loans in the world. I just knew that, and I took out loans for everything. I maximized my loans just because I wanted to. Not that I recommend, going to Puerto Rico for a summer, and doing that, because now you get stuck with all these loans. But all of this to say, after 10 years of government service, you can apply to get your loans forgiven through the federal government. I know that there have been other DAs, PDs who have gotten that recently, and it's not guaranteed, but it is something to look forward to, and it's something that I'm really, really hoping for, because I have over $150,000 in debt. So just something that we could discuss when we have more time, or you can email me, we can discuss further.
Thank you all so much for spending an hour and a half, which flew by, at least from my perspective. Hopefully it did for you, and I'm sure it did for our attendees. I will connect with all of the panelists offline, and then I will send out the email addresses for them probably early next week. So again, if you registered for the event, if you attended, you will get their contact information, and you will be able to follow up with them as then. I also would like to thank the School of Public Policy and Rayon and Marion for their support of this event. We really could not put these on without the School of Public Policy, and so we so appreciate it. Otherwise, I hate that we're out of time, but thank you to all of our panelists so much for taking the time out of your schedule to talk to our students, and I'm sure many will be in touch. Thank you, guys.